We're at the Equinox Preserve. I'm with Rick Ledoux, and we're going to go on a wildflower hike. But first I want Rick to tell us a little bit of the history of the wildflower hike and why it is that we're doing this.
Well, I'm the steward for the Equinox Preserve, a little over 900 acres here on Mount Equinox. The wildflower walks started, this is our third year of doing the wildflower walks, and they started really, it's kind of a, as I have most of my really good ideas when I'm wandering the trails of the preserve, I wanted a program that would engage people in doing some citizen science, but also learning more about the wildflowers that are here, how to identify them, what species are here. And also we wanted, I did some research and found some other organizations that were doing similar projects, and kind of putting that in conjunction with natural seasonal changes that occur every year. The study of phenology, which is basically, to boil it all down, it's Mother Nature's clock, Mother Nature's calendar rather than the human calendar, where flowers, seasonal changes, such as flowers blooming, the cherry blossoms in Washington, monarch butterflies coming through, the hummingbirds migrating. Those are different examples of seasonal changes that just the average, ordinary, non-scientific background person can observe and report these things. And then it gives you a better sense of kind of what is going out there in the world outside of just Mount Equinox, but kind of a global sense of, is climate change playing any role in this? Just day-to-day weather, dry season, whatnot. So that's how the whole idea started.
So we're watching wildflowers and recording when they come up and when they bloom.
Well, yep. Well, first of all, we're going out and identifying what's out there, just for fun, to learn something new. And also, when we spot the first blooming buds, also called the first flower. And now, if you want to get really technical and you were really patient and you wanted to do one flower over the course of an entire year, then you could go when the leaves first come out, when the flower buds first appear, when the seeds first appear. I'm not quite that dedicated. We're looking mostly for the first flower. And then what I've done over those 3 years is taken notes on where we're finding these wildflowers and what the date is, and so we can look back over. And again, it's only 3 years worth of data, but it's interesting to see the changes over those 3 years. And it's also nice because now, and you've been on almost every one of my hikes and taking pictures as well. I think between the two of us, we could just sit here and spot. We could just pull out the name of a flower and tell people exactly where the best spot to find those flowers are.
Do you want to go join the group? Because they're already started.
No, right, I guess.
All right, let's go.
Right, we stopped here by a nice small grouping of sharp-lobed hepaticas. And sharp-lobed hepaticas, again, very early out in the spring. Sometimes there's still a hint of snow on the ground when you see them. Sharp-lobed hepaticas, you notice on their leaves, it has 3 little lobes. And just like with coltsfoot, we're talking about when researchers first discover a flower, they get the naming rights. And the folks who named the hepaticas thought that resembled a liver. So the different lobes on the liver. Sharp-lobed hepatica is found growing in soil that has a a limestone base, which, to go back to the geology of the mountain, there's limestone bedrock in the mountain, very nutrient-rich soils here, and the other species of hepaticas, the round-lobed hepaticas, grow in soil that's a little bit more acidic. So if you're walking through the woods, like at your property, and you can tell the difference between a sharp-lobed and a round-lobed hepatica, then you can get an idea of what the soil conditions are like without actually having to go out and test the soil. The hepaticas also, this is kind of neat, when a flower bud comes out, the green covering of the bud, the green covering of the bud is called the sepals. Those are called the sepals, and the sepals spread out to reveal the petals of the flower inside. Hepaticas are kind of neat in that what you're looking at right there are the actual sepals. The colored part are the sepals. There are no petals, and the green part underneath, and there's usually 3 of them, the green part underneath, those are called bracts, B-R-A-C-T, bracts. So the bracts kind of cover up the sepals, which the sepals then spread out, forming the actual flower.
Another 3 years and maybe I'll get it.
This flower is called bloodroot because if you dig up the root, this one's losing its petals. This one, if you dig up the root, it has kind of a red latex component in the root that Native Americans used to use for different, used to dye clothing and for paints and things like that. That's where the name comes from. Pretty neat. One leaf kind of unravels, opens up as the day goes on and the sun comes out.
Yeah, there's several down.
This is another flower that is an indicator of rich soils, rich northern hardwoods. This is wild ginger, and its flower isn't quite out yet. I don't see any of these with their flower. But their flower is basically almost lays right on the ground. It's not very colorful, and it's a bit of a foul-smelling flower that really attracts insects and ants that are attracted to foul smells. So, and again, it's very easy for insects and ants to just, the flower lays almost right on the ground, and it's just very easy for them to crawl in and to spread the pollen. And there's a bunch of them here. There's got to be a dozen of them. So it's, the day we're filming this is April 13th. It's still relatively early, and one of the problems that the Equinox Preserve has been confronting is that of invasive species. And this time of year, especially for landowners that are working to develop a management plan, this is a great time of year to get out and get a general sense of what invasives are on your land and where they are. Because when at this time of year, when you look through the understory of the forest, just about anything that you see coming out with green leaves is going to be an invasive plant. Not everything, but just about everything. So this is a great time to go out and find those pockets of green shrubbery and go over and investigate. Is it a barberry? Is it a honeysuckle? Is it a burning bush gone wild? And getting a sense of what species are there, where they are, and how dense the clusters are. So when we're standing right here now, we can see some honeysuckle behind us, which I have flagged. This is some burning bush right here, which the buds are out, but it's not. The leaves are just coming out now. So there's some burning bush, and as we get lower down on this trail, we've kind of switched over onto the Trillium Trail now. As we go down the hill, we'll start to run into some more Japanese barberry. But again, this is a great time to look through and see where the thicker pockets of the invasives are, and then you have a better sense when you move forward on your management plan of whether you want to take those out. So the dogtooth violet, aka the trout lily. Here's a couple of Rick anecdotes about that flower. First of all, I've always noticed that it comes out. Trout lily, the flowers, the leaves look kind of like the speckled side of a trout. That's where it gets its name from, and it comes out at about the same time that trout season starts, and the flowers come out just about the same time as the black flies. So I remember as a kid going through the woods, and whenever I would see the trout lily flowers coming out, I knew that within a couple of days the black flies would be. Yep. So that's sort of like Rick's own phenology. And also, again, using your imagination, the person that discovered the trout lily, the dogtooth violet, the root looks like a dog's tooth, like a canine, and that's where the name comes from. Dogtooth violet. I stopped here because this is a nice little patch of what is termed two-leaf toothwort, and again, when you have the naming rights to a flower, you can use your imagination in any sort of way that you wish. The two-leaf toothwort, first of all, has two leaves, and they come off the main stem offset, so they don't come off the main stem opposite each other. They're slightly offset, and again, the toothworts, if you were to gently pull it all up and see the rootstock, it has tiny tooth-like projections, tiny little tooth-like bumps, ridges on the rootstock, and that's where the name comes from.
That was fascinating. Thank you, Rick.
Hey, thanks for coming.
As always,
Thanks for bringing your camera.
and I can't wait to come back next week.
All right, next Friday. We meet every Friday from now until the end of May.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Our friends to the north in Paulet have an interesting dilemma, and I'm here with Susan Sargent to talk about that dilemma. Susan, what's your problem?
Well, I wouldn't call it a dilemma as much as a fantastic opportunity, speaking as a conservationist, as I am an environmental person. Haystack Mountain, which is we like to think, the crown jewel at the end of the Meadowy Valley, has been a target for years for conservation groups to make sure that we can preserve the mountain and the surrounding area, which is of very interesting ecological value. We have an opportunity right now with the current owners to acquire the top of the mountain, 65 acres, and make it a permanent part of the community and the other natural lands there, and keep access open forever. As you probably know, it's a fantastic destination for hikers and people interested in nature of all kinds. So that's an opportunity.
That is. Now, how did this all come? What's the history? How did you get involved?
Well, I got involved, I guess you'd say originally I got involved in the whole future of the Meadowy Valley back in the late 70s, when the Vermont Land Trust made it a priority to try to save all the farmland through the valley. It's one of the 6 most valuable farming areas in Vermont. Vermont not being really great for farming in a lot of places, but the Meadowy Valley is. So I got involved there. I'm happy to say most of the farms are now in conservation through the valley. Most recently, I've been on the Nature Conservancy Board, and they have acquired different parcels of land around the base of the mountain that promote their own goals of biodiversity and ecologically significant land that they hold. The top, however, has eluded the groups, and it's one of those things people just think it is owned by somebody. you know, the mountain gods or the town or something. People are so surprised to find it's actually owned by a family that doesn't even live here. So we made it a mission to see if we couldn't secure the future of the summit so that it would be there forever for all of us and wouldn't get posted and wouldn't get a cell tower on it and would continue to be part of all of our lives. We hike it. You know, I hike probably every month. There are people who hike it every day. There are people who come from long distances just to hike it once because they've heard about it. So that is how the group formed. Like minds find each other somehow.
Mm-hmm. Now you have to raise a certain amount of money
We
in
do.
a certain amount of time.
Yeah, yeah. We have to raise $130,000 by the end of the year, and we're well on our way to that. But
Good.
the campaign is just starting. And we're finding such great response, you know, at all levels. So people just go, well, of course you have to save Haystack. I mean, it's not save isn't exactly the right word, but secure Haystack forever, for perpetuity. So it's a very gratifying project because it has no real politics. It doesn't really matter where you are on the spectrum of politics or economics or anything else. It's something we can all relate to, is this fabulous mountain sitting there for us all.
Now, if a viewer wanted to donate some money, how would they contact you? Or
Yeah, we have a website.
Okay.
Our group is called Friends of Haystack, and it's friendsofhaystack.org. And all the information is right there, including how to get to the trail. And we're happy to have people, as the project advances, we're also working with the other conservation groups to expand the trail network in there. So there'll be other great walks that will be marked, and people who want to help with that part of it, stewardship or mapping or annual trail maintenance, just be part of the group that we're forming. It's an ongoing commitment to the mountain.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much for coming down here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Berta McGinnis. I'm the Executive Director of Manchester in the Mountains Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I have been invited to be the commentator of what we hope will be the first annual Manchester in the Mountains Spring Fashion Show, which is the brainchild of the folks here at Equinox Village and principally Ashley Brennan Jewett. So she's the creator of our afternoon. We're going to show you some wonderful things. We have 35 models. We have all of our great retailers represented. And so I'm going to step back and we're going to begin the show.